It's time to talk Florida State recruiting. The Noles, they're currently sitting at number 12 in the On3 team rankings. FSU only has 4 commitments right now heading into the summer. But that is nothing to be worried about because Mike Norvell and his staff are gearing up for a very busy summer. In this video, I got War Chant recruiting insider Michael Langston on to break down the Noles' top targets. But first, FSU fans, do me a favor. Hit subscribe to the greatest recruiting channel on YouTube. We just hit 50K, so let's keep this thing rolling. Hit subscribe for me, please. All right, let's bring on Michael Langston from War Chant. Now, Mike, we're going to hit on a few of these top targets for the Noles as we get into summer. But first, quarterback commitment. Tramell Jones out of Jacksonville. He's been on the commit list for 13 months now, over a year. But he's been taking visits to the Florida Gators. What's your level of concern over Jones flipping his commitment, and are the Gators the biggest threat here?
At this point, I'm not heavily concerned. I think if we went by there a little while back, probably a few weeks ago, and he said the only visit he has officially visit is FSU. Now I'm still monitoring certainly because Florida certainly made an impact, and Tramell's even said that they're coming after him hard. So that's one that I'm still going to monitor. But he's coming for that FSU big June 21st weekend where they have 23 official visitors. That's probably the most I've ever heard at FSU since I've been covering Florida State. So I think there's going to be a lot of top targets there. He's been the most effective guy recruiting other players. That doesn't guarantee anything. That doesn't guarantee that he's going to sign. But I feel pretty good that he's going to sign with FSU. I think everything sits good. Now FSU's positioned himself. If something did happen, that they go after somebody like a 4-star quarterback, Carter Smith, who I've mentioned many times, committed to Michigan, but he's a guy that they've had a strong relationship with for a while. But if it comes to that, but I think they've made it clear Tramell's their guy, and it seemed to be after that NFL draft. A lot of FSU had a really good day or past few days for the draft, and it really seemed to shift it a little where, Tramell was a lot more solid the way he talked. Now, you still got to work it and finish it, but I think overall, I think they're still in a good spot.
Yeah. All right. Now let's get into some guys that Florida State is trending for. And if you're an FSU fan, recruiting's great, but you want to know how they're doing in the trenches. So let's start with defensive lineman Myron Charles, who the Noles are trending for at 90%. He's the number 9 ranked defensive lineman in America. Now, he's got official visits to Florida, USC, Miami, and FSU in June. I know Texas also trying to get in there. Do you agree with the recruiting prediction machine that Florida State's trending at about 90%?
I think that's fair. What they have in there, I think FSU feels really good based on the intel I get that they feel good where they stand. Odell Higgins has done a really good job with this recruitment, both recruiting Myron as a person and just player, and their development at that position certainly doesn't hurt their chances. Myron talks a lot about the amount of guys that what Odell does, and then I think their product on the field really help surge them up to the position they're in. But I think relationships really set the tone. But I think, going into those official visits, I think FSU's in a pretty solid spot. I think Ohio State's another one that is possibly trying to get an official visit. So there's other factors that, he could take other visits. But I think the two teams, FSU and Florida, have been the two teams that I've heard consistently throughout the whole process. But I think FSU should feel good about where they sit going into those officials.
Yeah, that's a big piece to this class if they can add a Myron Charles to the list. Let's move to the offensive side of the ball. Talk Josh Petty. Big time offense. Well, he's listed as an interior offensive lineman. I know some teams are recruiting him as an offensive tackle as well. He's the number 2 ranked interior offensive lineman in America, trending to FSU at 70% out of the state of Georgia. I know Tennessee's heavily involved in this one, but do you think this is a recruitment that FSU could close out this summer?
Oh, they definitely could. They already made a big splash when he came in the spring, more so than even I thought until after the visit. Then the communication from him and FSU, it was more him to FSU after that visit, where he was just so enamored by everything he saw, the way they run block, the way they fit his style of play, the way just the comfort level he had with Atkins. And we've seen that a lot where Atkins hooks into you with his relationships, and it's a different vibe than a lot of other places, and that's kind of part of why they search to where they are. And then you have an official visit coming up. think he's also on that June 21st visit weekend. So I think he's certainly a guy that they can close with. Obviously, there's still a lot of different teams involved, and you already mentioned a few of them, but I think they're trending in the right direction there, and that will be a massive haul because I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember. Maybe Josh can. I can't remember the last time they got like a maybe Landon Dickerson that they got a 5-star offensive lineman. So
Yeah.
they haven't had a lot of them. So getting him in the fold, I think, kind of solidifies their class. They already have one 5-star in Solomon, so I think certainly adding him would just really take this offensive line class to another level.
Yeah, I agree. Now let's talk about a potential flip target on this list. You got defensive lineman Jaylen Wiggins. He's been committed to UF, but we know he's from Rickards High School right there in Tallahassee. Big old frame at 6'5", 285, big number 7 defensive lineman in America. Now, is he just teasing FSU here with all these visits, or do you think that they have a legit shot to flip him?
Yeah, it's a very intriguing recruitment because when it first started, Jalen kind of wanted to get away from school, and
Mm-hmm.
that didn't necessarily equal good news for Florida. It's just he could go somewhere outside of the state of Florida. It's not out of the question. Somewhere like Southern Cal or something. I could see that, or just somewhere that's away. So that was kind of the early part. And so what FSU has done is they've really worked on the personal relationships. They've gotten people that have played in Tallahassee. Certainly doesn't hurt when you have a guy like Ernie Sims on your staff, your support staff. He's a local kid. He's been through what Jalen's going through. So I think that's certainly helped FSU make a little surge of movement, because it's not just the development, because people forget, like, FSU recruited this kid probably longer than anybody early. I mean, he had been camping at FSU since he was in the ninth grade, so he knows Coach JP a lot, the defensive end coach. He's very he knows what they do with development with Jared Verse and the defensive ends, and the product is there. But I think the personal connection to FSU is what's kind of shifted it, where I feel like FSU is a major threat to Florida. I do think he's still going to go through the process. I do
Mm-hmm.
think he feels comfortable with Florida, but I think it's something where the scheduling setting up nice for FSU. He's visiting that June 21st weekend. He's going to be around a lot of different guys, going to be around commits, going to be around guys that are highly considering FSU. So if they can nail it on that official visit, yeah, it definitely can become reality. So they're definitely a threat, but there's still stuff to do to finish it off. But I do think they're trending, and
Mm-hmm.
certainly trending in a good direction based on where they were if you compare it like maybe 4 months ago.
Yeah. All right. Let's move to linebacker recruiting. We'll go to the top of that linebacker board where you see Tavion Wallace, 6'1", 197, the number 3 ranked linebacker in America. Now he's going to take his official visits, and then he's going to make a decision on July 15th. He has set a date. Where do you think FSU stands as, I know it's only about 8-9 weeks away, but it's going to go really fast once June comes. So where do you think FSU stands heading into the summer?
Yeah, that's another one that's a major one, because we've seen a lot of a boost in basically their linebacker recruiting. They already have 4-star Ethan Pritchard. There's several other guys along with Tavion that they're highly involved with, that they feel like they have a legit shot with. And then Tavion, I think through the process he's always said, Florida State's the leader. I will say that Florida has made a nice push. That's a school that has made up some ground, I think, with FSU. But I always go back to these things, because a lot of times when these kids do these officials, they're like, they could say this school's leading the whole way, and then they get to the officials and they're like, well, I'm coming in it with an open mind, and everyone's even. So I think that's kind of where he's kind of at, but I do like where FSU sits. I always go back to what place are you going to the most? What place has been the most consistent with you? And that's been FSU. So I do think they're in the best spot. But I do think Florida's a threat. But I think they can certainly finish this off, and that would be a major jolt, to their linebacker
Mm-hmm.
recruiting, because it really solidifies and maybe speeds up them finishing off the class with, say, a guy like Gavin Nix or a guy like Ty Jackson in the class. Overall, it really picks up your linebacker recruiting, and I'll say the same name I said earlier, in Ernie Sims. I think he is a big boost to having him in that room when you get official visits or you're talking over the phone. That guy has been really pivotal for FSU to add some more juice, so to speak, with that linebacker recruiting room.
All right, Mike, I got one more name I want to hit on, and that's one of the top wide receivers in the state of Florida. We're talking wide receiver Vernell Brown III. Now, his recruitment has kind of had a couple phases. There was a time where Florida was the perceived leader. He's a legacy recruit there. Florida State has been heavily involved. He's insinuated that maybe the Knowles lead. Miami's involved. Ohio State's involved. Vernell Brown, though, his recruitment's only heating up as we get towards summer. What do you think goes on here?
Yeah, that's a fun one, isn't it? Yeah, that's a real fun one to watch because there's connections to Florida because his dad played there.
Sure.
There's connections to Ohio State because heck, it's Ohio State. Look what they do at receiver every year, every single year. Brian Hartline is just killing it with production. And then FSU, it's been the one that's consistent. They've been on him so long, and he sees what FSU's offense looked like. And I think the exciting part for him is that he loves the way the multiple ways that FSU uses their receivers and rushers or pass catchers, but he also loves just how he feels around this team. When he's around this team and he's around the players and especially the staff and Norvell, there's a genuine juice and excitement of that program. So I still feel, it's just my gut feeling, I still feel FSU and Ohio State are the teams that I hear the most buzz around. I hear some with Florida, and that's there because he's a legacy. But I hear a lot around FSU and Ohio State, and certainly all three are going to get him on official visits. So it's going to probably be a roller coaster of just emotions of changes. But I think a lot of what connects him to FSU is, one, their product, and two, the feeling when you're on there. And every time I talk to Vernell, he tells me FSU is one of the most consistent teams. Of their pitch is the same, and their message is the same, and how they are is the same. And that's what recruits are looking for: is stability, connection, and then also consistency. And I think FSU has done a really good job with that, of nailing that. And then two, just their receivers in general. After watching what Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson did, kids are now excited, I think, in another level that I've seen at that wide receiver position, even though there's a lot of guys. We did a 3 targets to watch at receiver, and Vernell was definitely one of them. So there's a lot of excitement, but they're kind of almost like the new kids on the block of showing what the wide receiver room can be with this offense.
Yeah, a lot of twists and turns. FSU fans, tap in. How we feeling? 4 commitments, but room for a lot more, and FSU recruiting is about to heat up. Comment section below. Who's your top target? Some of the guys we mentioned, maybe some others that we didn't mention. Let me know. Yep. Comment section below. Well, you've made it to the end of today's video, but there's hundreds more videos on the On3 Recruits channel for you to check out. And also, while you're here, hit subscribe.